I'm retired, so I got oodles of time, nothing but time.
Today I was lucky enough to get in touch with Byron Dunn, who is the founder and creator of Powerlineman Magazine. How are you doing today, Byron?
I'm doing fine, and you?
We're doing good. For those listening, most of the folks know I'm here in Orlando, so I'm very envious of Byron's location in Colorado, and he just was telling me that he's had, how many days did you say, over 90?
Over 70 days this year.
I don't envy that because we've been living through that, but what I do is the cool nights and crisp air. I wish we could get some of that in Orlando. We're still a few months away and have to get through hurricane season before we can get any of that.
They said this week we're going to probably break the record on Sunday for the most 90-degree days, and then on Monday it's going to snow. So that's Colorado.
Why does that not surprise me? As we get started here, just tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got in this career.
Well, I was born in Longmont. I still live in the town I was born in. Growing up in town, I was a horrible student in school, terrible student. As soon as I turned 16, I was born in 1953. And so as soon as I turned 16, I quit school and went to work at different things. I worked at a chicken farm, and I was a printer, offset pressman, and different things like this. And then one day a posting in the paper that the city of Longmont was looking for help, and I put my application in. I started off in the trash department, actually, and then within a year, I transferred over to the electric department. I was 19 at the time that I got into the electric department, and I pretty much never left. So 30 years later, I retired.
Oh, wow. And that's a city-owned utility.
Yep, the city of Longmont, it's a municipally owned utility. They have their own generator that was installed in 1911 that's still turning, and they own all their own system and maintain it and build it, and they do it all without contractors, basically.
I think I told you via email that I grew up at a municipal in Tennessee, the city of Chattanooga, and I jumped ship after about 15 years, went to work for a contractor, spent some time out west, and I could not believe the amount of municipals that had their own generation. That was very surprising to me, living under the TVA umbrella of distributors, power distributors in Tennessee, the 7-state region in the Southeast. That came as a big surprise, seeing all the diesel generators and the generating stations that municipals had out west. Very interesting.
Yeah, very independent-minded people back then.
Yeah, and the machines that I saw around 2000 were very well taken care of, but they had some age on them.
Yeah.
30 years in the business, and as I mentioned in the intro, you are the founder, creator of Powerlineman Magazine. How did that come about?
I'd always been interested in any kind of gadgets or electronics, and my first computer I ever bought was a Commodore 64. And so I was always pretty much aware of what was going on technology-wise, and when the internet came along, my then wife gave me a book by Bill Gates called The Road Ahead. That was 1996. She gave me that for Christmas, and I read it, and before I even read it, I decided I was going to just believe whatever he said, because it was Bill Gates. And what he said was that in the near future, everything's going to be on the internet. If you want to buy a car part, you'll go on the internet, and I couldn't, that's what he said, so I thought, well, I've got to do something on the internet. I've always been kind of an entrepreneur. I've always done side businesses besides being a lineman. I did all kinds of other different things on the side to make extra money. I thought, well, there's all these different trade magazines out there. Even pig farmers have a trade magazine and linemen don't. So I thought to myself, I'm going to make an online magazine. And so I tried, and I built the first website using Front Page, Microsoft Front Page. Of course, I had no content for a magazine. That was just an idea that wasn't going to work, but what happened was turned into a forum for linemen, powerlineman.com, to bitch about the world.
Yeah. I had no idea that linemen ever bitched about anything, so that's news to me.
Yeah, usually, yeah. And one of the big advantages back then was none of us knew what anybody else was making per hour pay-wise. Everybody was kind of isolated to their own territory. And it was hard to find out how much everybody was making in different parts of the country. And so suddenly with the internet, we all knew what the other person was making. That was kind of the beginning of Powerlineman. And then they started posting employment postings. I think Southern Cal Ed was the first one that put a posting looking to hire linemen. And I thought, well, a company can pay. They can pay to have that there. And so I started charging for employment postings. That's how it all started right there. Pretty soon, all kinds of companies were posting, and they still do.
So a couple things. One is my first computer in the mid 80s was also a Commodore 64. I was telling somebody at work about it the other day about how you had to have a stack of floppy disks to load one game, and it would take 20 minutes and 6 or 8 disks to load one game. I remember it was a load. It was quote, asterisk, end quote, comma 8, comma 1, enter. I can remember that. It's kind of ironic now that my stepson's 14 and he turns his PS4 on and could be landing F-18s on aircraft carriers in less than five seconds compared to what we did on a computer at first. So
yeah, it was incredible. And it even had, I think it had a cassette tape for memory.
Yeah,
that was.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's funny how things change. And I never realized how that Powerlineman magazine and how the internet was very influential on the wages across the country for line workers. That's an amazing fact there, that, as you mentioned, without the internet, there was really no other way to compare what other folks were making. You were always dependent on published, I guess.
Or when you got to a hotline school or any kind of a gathering, that was always the questions that were asked. How much are you making? What's your benefits? And like that.
I remember every time, of course, working at a municipal in Tennessee, we did not have a contract with the IBW. We had a working agreement because it was against the law to have a binding contract for a municipal, but they would do surveys with other utilities. But what we heard was always just what we heard, what they wanted to tell us, I guess. You might say. We didn't really hear from the other workers. We just heard what our leadership wanted to tell us. They were always fair, but, it just kind of in the back of my mind, I always wondered if we were getting the full story or not. But
And the problem the city had, because we trained our own apprentice, all homegrown, everything's done in-house. And so we'd end up, because of the disparity, the union guys were making so much more. The city was ending up training guys, and as soon as they got their journeyman, they were out the door and gone. And so we were just wasting money. So they had to pay us more to stay. They didn't want to, but they had to. So that's what happened there. We were always pretty competitive with the union wage.
Sure.
Because people would leave. Linemen, if there's money, they're going.
That's right. Yeah, that's loyalty, for the most part, is in that paycheck every week or every other week.
Pretty much.
But, yeah. I did find working at a municipal, the training I received, and I didn't realize it at the time, it was very frustrating as an apprentice going through the apprenticeship at a municipal. But we had a network system in downtown Chattanooga, so I've experienced lead sheath cable, network system. I worked in the transformer shop.
What years were you there?
I started in late 89 and stayed through 2004.
Okay.
Yeah, you learn a lot working at a municipal. That's for sure. You've seen a lot. We both have seen a lot in our career, but you just got a few years on me. I turned 51 a couple weeks ago. We both have seen a lot of changes in our career. Where do you see the utility business in the next 20 to 30 years? And where I'm going with that is I know out west the wind machines and solar is pretty big. Do you see that, along with battery storage, changing the face of the electric industry?
Well, not for linemen. I think linemen are going to be digging holes and setting poles until they figure out how to broadcast power. But for the industry, all I know is what I see on TV and read in the papers. And they're always going to have to burn something in the end to keep the lights on. Even with batteries, if the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, I don't see how a battery is going to keep New York City rolling.
Yeah, just the demand in itself is going to, ends are going to justify the means, I guess.
Yeah. Now I've seen technology that I thought was pretty interesting, where they were putting a skin of solar panels on the outside of skyscrapers was the concept.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then here's another one I just saw the other day. What I thought was really cool. They're building this, I think, in Dubai, maybe. But anyway, between floors, besides the solar panels, between floors, they leave a gap of several feet of airspace, and then they're putting wind turbines in between the floors.
Oh, wow.
So that's a hell of a good idea.
It is a good idea. Yeah, because I've been to New York 3 times and been at the top of the Rock, Empire State Building. Any building you go on top of, I guess you would feel a lot more of the wind. But man, the wind is just overpowering at some. I've been in Chicago. I don't know what the Sears Tower. I can't remember what it's called now. It's not Sears Tower anymore, but Willis Tower. The wind is just amazing up there. So that is a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Really a great idea.
So with that kind of stuff, I don't know how much. But I still think, you're going to have to burn something for the base power,
mm-hmm.
Yep. And I think it's all good. You can't hurt anything by trying not to burn things. If we really want to clean up the planet, we need to get rid of the internal combustion engine.
I have done a lot of, reading and such since we've been in the middle of this pandemic, and the fact all across the world, more people are staying home during all this. So.
And how sweet the air smelled right away.
Yeah, for sure.
As soon as COVID hit, everything got sweetened up. Now it's going back.
All through the industry, I can remember when harnesses came out or when they were introduced at the utility I worked at. And I remember we called it the harness and hard hat police would come around. And because at the time, we only had to wear our hard hats in the crew when someone was working a loft. If we were doing URD work in a subdivision, we didn't have to have a hard hat on. We didn't.
Same here.
Yeah. Then there was a time where you had to put your hard hat on every time you got out of the truck. You had to have your harness on every time you were working a loft. There's been a lot of safety improvements throughout the years. We still see a lot of incidents and accidents that, in my mind, are just unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's silly mistakes. And you hate to say that, especially when someone is seriously injured or the injury is a fatality. But it's just, it's ridiculous. So the next question is, in regards to safety, what's the one thing that you think the industry needs to focus on to prevent these type of accidents? What's going to take us back on track?
Oh boy, you talking electrical or falling?
Either one.
Well, they've tried to engineer out the skill of being a lineman. And I'm afraid some of the young guys learning how to climb never get over the idea, the fear of falling, so their mind is not entirely on the electric part of it. They're distracted because they never learned how to climb proper. As far as the electrical accidents, I think it's all back to the basics of keeping your mind on your business and what you're doing at the time, exactly what you're going to do next. Keep your mind on where your hands are going. And getting in series is the easiest thing to do, right?
Yeah, your mind can get distracted so easy.
It's just so easy to do if you're not thinking. All you got to do is not pay attention to do it.
It is hard to do. I think cell phones have not been kind to the industry. I remember the guys in the crew, I didn't have one at the time, but they had pagers, and, at lunch was always running down to the convenience store to make a phone call to call home, where now, they have their phones in their shirt pocket or in their Diddy bucket or whatever, tool board, or it's just always a distraction.
Particular if you're thinking about politics or your wife's been cheating on you or anything like that, if your mind is distracted by something else, you've got to learn to be disciplined enough to forget that while you're at work, and it's hard to do.
Back to the climbing thing, I interviewed late last year Donovan Wims is a lineman in the Bahamas, and I was talking about one of the hurricanes that came through there. He posted a video on LinkedIn of him climbing and doing work, did a little video and posted it, and I actually posted it on the website or Facebook page, I can't remember, and was blasted because he was free climbing.
Oh, geez.
Blasted, and what a lot of people don't understand is that's how we came up, free climbing, and it is legal in some places outside the United States. They still free climb. We would free climb up to the communication cable or the neutral, and then we would belt off, and then you were good to go.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough to never have to have worn any fall restraint other than my scare strap. So I was very, very lucky to be a lineman when I was. And this is a problem, I think, that is in the industry and always has been. And that is that the vendors drive what we're using. It was invented by vendors who want to sell you something new.
That's a great point. I've talked about the vendors before. We've all been involved with vendors at some level. I remember working in the field and using a tool or a device, a transformer, a recloser, sectionalizer, whatever, cable. It was like the flavor of the day. Whatever salesperson came through the utility at the time, that drove our design. The latest and greatest drove our design in a lot of different avenues.
Yeah, as being owner of the magazine, I have to watch what I say for my opinion on all those things.
Sure.